Hi, welcome to the Heart Powered Ventures podcast, the future of heart powered entrepreneurship post pandemic, where we're looking at what it means to be a heart powered and impact driven entrepreneur with all the changes that have happened in the last year. What are the challenges and what are the opportunities? I'm Dave Gold. I'm your host, the founder of Heart Powered Ventures. I'm here with my podcast partner and producer, Artem Smirnov. Artem, say hi.
Hey, everybody. Glad to be
And
here, Dave.
where is here right now?
I'm currently in Sedona, Arizona, on a bit of a pilgrimage, exploring some of the parts that I haven't seen in the country.
And I'm here today with our guest is my friend and neighbor and colleague, Shaina Holman, who we've had on previous recordings. Shane, it's great to see you again.
Oh, thank you. You too.
Yeah, we're literally probably a quarter of a mile apart. I, uh, so Shayna is among other things, is my family's dentist and is my dentist as well. She runs an incredible practice, and I realized as soon as I met her, I think even before my company was named Heart Powered Ventures, that this was a heart powered business person. And I want to tell a quick story that I actually included in the preface to her ebook, which is we're just about to be published. We'll talk a little bit about your consulting business as well as your dentistry practice. But the first time I went into Shayna's office, I was living in Raleigh before I got married and moved to Chapel Hill. My dentist was the dentist for the Carolina Hurricanes, which is the hockey team, and I used to get free Penguin tickets. So I love going to the. I didn't love going to the dentist, but I love leaving the dentist with my hockey tickets intact. And my wife Julie kept saying, "You got to go to the new dentist. She's fantastic." Blah 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 blah. I went in a little begrudgingly because I knew I wasn't going to walk out with tickets. But as soon as I walked into Shayna's office, I felt connection. I felt there was connection in terms of the way that her employees, her staff was talking with each other, with the way they were talking with me, just listening to them on the phone. And then when I actually got behind the walls and was getting my teeth cleaned and getting to meet Shane, I thought, oh my gosh, this woman has kind of stumbled on the secret of authenticity and connectivity in her business. And then as I've gotten to work with her more professionally, understanding that she brings this great combination of heart and connection and loving people with brilliant business savvy and I would say even ruthless accountability. So I would consider you again one of the poster children for heart powered entrepreneurship. So Shayna, thank you for bearing with that long introduction, but I love to tell the story. So Shayna, tell me, well, just give me some idea how you came to be. Well, first of all, brag about your practice a bit, and then tell us how you got to have the practice that you've gotten.
Yeah, I guess I finished dental school up and had the goal of becoming a dental practice owner. And what I was always told is it's better to buy somebody else's practice rather than do your own thing. Just because on day one, if you buy someone else's practice, you have income. And if you start your own thing, you might not have any income. Um, so I started to explore different ways to become an owner, but I still thought I would have to buy someone else's practice. So I started meeting with other dentists that were going to retire, people that are thinking about retiring soon, started having those conversations and visiting their practices. But I started to realize that I didn't think that path was for me, and I thought I might do better starting from scratch based on what I know of myself, of my personal strengths and weaknesses. So if you buy someone else's practice, the challenge is that on day one, that you, right after you make the purchase, the owner or the prior owner would sit down with their whole team and tell them that now this new dentist has bought the practice and they're now your boss. You can't let the team know ahead of the purchase that you're going to buy. It has to just be after it's done, it's presented. So I thought that would be really a very challenging environment to walk into. And then same thing with the patients. The patients get no heads up about this. Sometimes you negotiate with a selling dentist that they would stay on board for a few months to help introduce you to new patients. But for the most part, again, these patients are thinking they're seeing their dentist that they've seen forever and are just getting a surprise that this new person is there. And I just thought from a business standpoint, that would be, again, just really challenging because that means you don't want to change too much about the practice. You don't want to, shock people too much. So I started thinking about how that would work. And that, yeah, again, it just started stressing me out. I started to see other people's practices too, where they had done this and they go in on day one and then this piece of equipment breaks and that piece of equipment breaks. And there's also some unpredictability there about what your expenses are. You don't know if the employees will stay. A lot of them quit right away. You don't know if the patients will also just walk right out of the room. So there's just a million variables. So I started to think more about the option of starting my practice from scratch. And what I kind of landed on was that I had 2 part-time jobs that were each 1 day a week. And I figured I could pay my bills from those 2 jobs because I lived a very modest lifestyle. And I could start a practice from scratch even if I wouldn't have income for a couple years. And that's what everyone told me. I wouldn't have income for probably about 2 years to be able to pay myself. So I thought, I think I could ride that out for a couple years. I'm no stranger to hard work and whatnot. I think that's the way to go. So I talked to my husband about it because he stays home with our kids, and he was on board because, again, that would impact his life. No travel, no extra expenses. He would have to be really disciplined until I was making an income. But yeah, so I decided to launch it. So that was a year after I finished my residency training is when I signed the lease for my practice and got it going. At the time, I had decided I'd do social media marketing to introduce myself to the community. So I did a Facebook Live recording, and I said, I'm scared, but I've done it. I've signed a lease. I'm going to be starting construction in the next month, and I hope that people join along with me and watch the whole process. And yeah, during that Facebook Live, my hand was recording. Shaking. I'd never done a Facebook Live video before. But it was really cool to see my community really rally for me and for this practice. That video ended up getting over 8,000 views. People shared it, liked it, commented on it. They were really excited, and people followed along in our journey over the next few months of me starting it, describing why I was doing certain things I was doing and what the goal was and the vision was for this practice. They got to learn about me and my style with things. And when we first opened, we had 53 pre-booked appointments for new patients, which is just unheard of in my industry, at least. And then it's just skyrocketed from there and has grown exponentially. We were able to hire another dentist after year 1. And towards about a year and a half in, we expanded the office next door. So it's now just become this really great practice that I thought was going to take me a lifetime to build, not just a few years. So now I'm about a little over 3 years into the practice and just trying to further shape its vision and growth. So that's pretty much the story.
So this is so fascinating. I remember when I was doing work, oh God, 30 years ago, kind of a predecessor to my company, Howard Power Ventures, and I was working with different professionals and was surprised to discover that dentists had the highest suicide rate. Um, dentist is not something that we normally associate with kind of warm and fuzzies and and that kind of connection. But you immediately, people were invested in you from the beginning. You got
Yeah.
people invested in you, but that wasn't like a trick. That was how did that come about?
Yeah, I think I had seen another dentist doing a startup who put a lot out there on social media, and we have very different personalities, but I just felt like that would be a good way for me to communicate with the public, and it's very cost effective. I mean, there's no money, which is fantastic. So I learned a little bit about Facebook marketing, just how like the algorithms work. So I thought that would be just a good authentic way for me to put myself out there. And I didn't want to just draw in numbers of people to my practice. I wanted to bring in people that wanted to see me,
Wow.
were my style of patients. So I thought that was also a good way for me to draw people in because they want to see me, and versus just I need a dentist who's close by, or I need the cheapest, or is somebody in network with my insurance. I didn't want those to be the motivating factors. I wanted them to see me. And as a result too, I have to say that's worked really well. Like the patients that do come up to us, not because of their insurance or not because of other things, like they I don't have to necessarily build the same amount of trust I normally do with a new patient right at a first appointment, because these are usually people that have been following me on social media for several months, and they already have a sense of my character. Now that I've been around a little longer, there's more word of mouth, so people have a sense of my character from word of mouth. But it makes it a lot easier to explain to people what's going on with their teeth and their options and what they need when they also just trust your judgment and trust you and believe in you as a person. So
Well,
it just really worked well.
and I know from your book that basically the conventional wisdom was don't put your practice where you put it. It was,
Oh yeah, that too. I'm in a very oversaturated area. And there's an entire dental school in Chapel Hill where people can get dental treatment at half the price, so they have to be coming to see me for a reason. But that's why I thought my practice would grow really slowly too, because there's a lot of really great dentists in Chapel Hill. They're great people as well, and it's just very saturated.
but it's so interesting that again, being in a profession, I was an attorney, so and so there's a numbers game that's actually
Yeah,
associated with that. And but both, it's interesting because as I reflect back, I was always more interested in the quality of the relationship than the quantity.
right.
And that seems to have been, was that like that was a conscious decision of yours, or was that just because that's
Yeah.
who you were?
No, I just felt like from a business standpoint, it's much easier to do business when people want to come to you and they don't
Wow.
have to come to you. And I thought, also did a lot of market research. Just I followed all the dentists on Facebook and Instagram that are in my area and checked out their websites. And everything was so impersonal. I mean, I think I really realized that by me doing this, it was really breaking a big mold. Like there was basically no one doing any kind of personal social media, and there still isn't. There's one pediatric dentist in Chatham County that I think does his own social media, but like most of them, you can just tell they've hired a company. Because I follow all the dentists, when that same company posts the same meme every time, it stacks it in my Facebook timeline. But like all these people posted the same meme. So it's all just very impersonal, and their websites often don't even have a picture of the dentist on them. I mean, let alone any kind of bio. And they just have like definitions of root canal, which no one wants to know the definition of a root canal. Like that's not a way to attract business from your website. So things like that, I realized that this would be very unique to even have a website that's very personal and social media presence is very personal. And just allow myself to connect that way.
That's that's incredible, Shayna. A few things that caught my attention. First of all, wait, so you wrote a book?
Oh yeah. So I guess typical my person this is typical of my personality is when the pandemic hit and I had nothing to do, I realized I really wanted to get a book done. And Dave helped me with that and to get it organized and whatnot. But because I'm active on social media and because I'm active in dentist Facebook groups on social media, a lot of dentists follow my practice. So I get a lot of messages about business on my social media page. And then I jump on phone calls with people for like an hour or two at a time because I just love this stuff and talking about business. And then I kind of realize I'm not really protecting my time very well. So I decided I should really write it in a book so that way when people start asking me questions, I can say, here you go. This kind of has the story in it and some tips and recommendations. And I thought that'd be a good way to reach people and protect my time. I do
That's
now have 3 kids, so it's
ooh, the
not easy. Sometimes just when I jump on a call for an hour or two, I feel bad.
time is precious. Yeah, that's awesome that you wrote a book about that and solidifying your story. But I really loved that initially you took a bigger risk to start your own practice, expecting it to be more difficult, but because you focused on quality over quantity, and forming you know authentic connections with personally actually ended up paying handsomely in the business sense, which is so great because it proves that business doesn't have to be cutthroat. You don't have to spend all this money on marketing. You just be yourself, and that actually is a good business strategy moving forward, which is that
Yeah.
warms my heart a little bit.
I also that mentality was extended also to my employees. I don't refer to them as my staff because someone joked with me once that staff is an infection, and I have a team. I don't have a staff. So, but I treat them the same way. Like I'd rather invest more money and time in really great people and making sure my team is really happy and doing well and that they're fulfilled personally and professionally and everything because I know the cost of staff turnover. I mean, that's a huge expense and it's very damaging for a business when you realize the team's flipping over and whatnot. So I also invest a lot of them and make sure that they know my heart and where I'm coming from because they'll give them more patience with me if I'm in a bad mood or if something is I'm not if I do something that's not great, it's important for me to then for me to know that they know my heart and my character and my ethics and values, and it makes them more motivated to work hard too.
And just in terms of teasing this out for values again going forward is post pan, because one thing I want you to brag a little bit about how well you did with the pandemic, and that'll set me up for why what you've done set you up for pandemic and set you up post pandemic.
So when the pandemic was announced, I was actually in New Orleans at a dental meeting, and I came back the next day, and I started talking to my office manager, and I said, I think we need to close the office. I don't know how this virus is being transmitted. Our infection control person said we're okay with level 3 masks and just do what we're doing, but I thought, no, based on what I'm hearing, people don't even really understand this enough to make a recommendation like that. So I said, let's just close the office for 2 weeks and regroup after then and make a plan, because maybe by 2 weeks we'll know a bit more. So I sent an email out to my patients, and I told them that I'm going to close office for 2 weeks. I am going to pay my team their entire salaries in that time. It's not towards their PTO. I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. But I really want to come back and open the office in 2 weeks, knowing that we're good. I told them we'd be doing telehealth in the meantime, and I'm still here if they have an emergency, because it's not good for them to go to the hospital or ER right now. So let me know if you have an emergency. We'll do a telehealth, and I'll absolutely see you if needed, but just need to buy that time. Then a few days later, the ADA actually came out and said they wanted dental offices to close to emergencies only. So a few things happened when I did that initially. Is I got a lot of patients responding by email about the part where I said I would be paying my team for those 2 weeks. That was just such an amazing thing to do, and that they are not seeing people do that, and everyone's so stressed because businesses were starting to close and people didn't know how they were going to pay their bills, and they thought that was really great. I even had patients that were on my listserv because for other reasons, because sometimes I have other people on my listserv that said they were going to transfer over my practice immediately just because of that, because their dentist hadn't made any communication with them, or their communication was very impersonal, again, just something very generic. Um, so that was pretty amazing. And also the response of my team was really amazing, because in those 2 weeks they said, look, you had our back. When we get back in there, we are going to be working our tails off to make this up, because we don't want you to have to take that financial hard hit just to take care of us. And so I thought that was pretty amazing too. Now, of course, 2 weeks became 3 weeks. And again, I was communicating with our patients every few days on updates to make sure that they knew how to get in touch, to make sure they knew that we were here for them, but also so that they were reassured that I was taking care of my team. So that turned into 3 weeks. And by the 3 week mark, then unemployment added the extra 600 a week. So then I put some people on furlough and had them getting unemployment, but I felt good that they were being taken care of because of the unemployment. And with my dental assistants in particular, I had 6 dental assistants, and pretty much if they worked more than, I think it was like 4 hours a week, they would just get less unemployment as opposed to getting more overall money. But they each worked a day a week to help me seeing emergencies, which really meant like 4 of those hours a day, they were just there not making any extra money, but they were so committed and so dedicated to the purpose. And they knew I had taken care of them in such a big way that they were happy to do that, which was awesome. And yeah, and then I stayed really busy with emergencies, honestly. I saw one person at a time, but I was booked each day with emergencies. So I was actually still pretty busy. But yeah, and then when we came back, everyone, I mean, it's been crazy ever since. I'm now booked out until July, I think, for new patients. It's insane. So everything's been really busy since then. But what I generally heard from patients when they started to come back was how much it meant to them that I was communicating with them throughout the whole 8 weeks that we were closed to emergencies only, and they knew that I was there, and they knew I took care of some really bad infections and pulled out a lot of teeth and did emergency dentistry. But yeah, they knew I was going to take care of them. They knew there's a plan. And a lot of them that had maybe children that saw a different dentist, or maybe only their kids came to us and not them as adults, they just commented about the difference between their dentist response versus mine, and how I was so much more communicative and so much more clear about everything. And as we implemented infection control strategies, I was posting about it online, on social media. I made a page on our website that just said, this is what we're doing. So people would have just a list and really see what we were doing and why. And I went way above what we had to do. Like the ADA said what we had to do. I went a step beyond that. And that also makes a big impression on people. Like a lot of my Google reviews now are people saying that, like, of all of their medical related appointments, that we were by far the most cautious, protective, like over the top about infection control that they've seen. And that's good in my opinion. I'd rather have people say that than not.
So,
So,
so
mhm.
there's some great stuff here. But I mean, one, when I say you're a poster child, you're a good person doing good work and doing things the right way for the right reasons, and you're slaying it. And I don't think, I mean, I think you're an anomaly. I've met a lot of people like you, but I don't think that experience is anomalous. In other words, I think that's not like, oh, she just got lucky. I just want to acknowledge it. There's really not a question there. I've just watched you over the years in these different ways that we know each other and build it. And I think there's a point I want to make now, because you and I are both the same way. We're both good people, but we're also good marketers and good salespeople. We're good
Mhm.
communicators. And there's nothing wrong with doing things for the right reason and then letting people know you're doing it.
Right. And that's kind of what I do. It's more like, it's not that I'm really having to work hard to come up with the strategy for marketing. It's just I make sure that people know what I'm doing
Yeah.
and why, you know.
So what does it feel like for you when you're making a decision that's a good, my father said, used to ask me, how does a decision make you feel? And in business, a lot of times you feel you don't have that luxury because you got to make a decision based on facts, or I don't want to, I'm afraid I'm letting my personal stuff get in the way. But I want you, from my history with you, you make decisions on how things make you feel.
Yeah, no, I make decisions on how they make me feel and how I'd want to be treated. And, when I go in after hours for emergency, it's because that's how I would want someone to handle the situation if it was my tooth. um, or with an employee, it's the same thing. It's how I would expect to be treated.
Another part that I think, well, first of all, yeah, well, you trust yourself. And this is something interesting. We just finished up another podcast with Angie Shockley. We talked at the end, like that was kind of like at the headwaters of her success and everything she was doing, that she trusted. And you have where does this, I don't know if, I don't even know how I'd answer it if someone asked me this question, but I can ask you, where does your trust in yourself come from?
That's a great question. I think I don't know, maybe it's just knowing that all these things are genuine. I mean,
Wow.
I think when you do something that's just really genuine, you trust it because it's just genuine. I don't know. And I'm a confident person. I think people think that I'm much more extroverted than I am, but I'm actually quite an introvert. And so I don't really care what other people think too much. To some extent I do, but like in a big way, I only care that they know who I am and that they see who I am. And if they don't like that, then that's kind of where I go. I don't know what to do with them or that. Like I don't. It makes me not care about their opinion very much. Like when I do have a patient that's disgruntled about something, and it's some ridiculous situation, I'm just like, I mean, if you can really look at everything I'm about and all of this and have some negative takeaway from it, then I can't really. I mean, I can't waste my energy being upset about that. That doesn't make any sense.
I know. I
Does
mean,
that make sense? Does that answer make sense?
it's
It's
beautiful.
kind of just being confident with myself and who I am, I guess. But like when I even compare myself to my little sister who's very extroverted, like she really cares what people think about her, and
Yeah.
it's harder for her to lead with her heart a little, I think because
Well,
she's
because
very conscious of what people think.
her sense of self comes from what others think about her.
Right.
And so it's totally depend, and all of us have some of this. And I mean, again, if I could bottle what you have and sell it, then, I would have generational wealth, and you would too, because I'd cut you in for it. In terms of this ability to just not really care when you know you're right, and you know that some people are just not going to like you, and it's about them and not about you. As someone said, that you're looking for respect from people that don't respect themselves, and
Right.
that's like a helpless that's a hopeless situation.
Well,
Uh,
even when I've had employees that have left, it's all I can always sit back and feel really good about myself and how I'm running my business and what I did because, because I've just set myself up that way. Like I'm such a generous person and I, I share exactly what I want and what I need. And, so if someone doesn't see that or appreciate it, it's just like, okay, well, then I need to find people that do.
Artem, anything you want to say? Is it? I mean, that's stunning, isn't it?
That's beautiful. Yeah, just running your business the right way for the right reasons, and then it becomes more sustainable just because of that. Um,
Yeah.
I
But no,
love.
but we have some zero what 1-star reviews, and I have some employees that might say something negative, but I almost laugh and try to think sometimes like what could people really say? I don't know. They'd have to literally just lie about I don't know because
It's
there's
probably your competitor is just like trying to like
Yeah.
down you with those internet reviews.
I don't know.
But there's something that's interesting here too. So one is I just want to say, if poster child not only for a heart powered business, but just what the future of heart powered business, because what you have more of is what people are going to want more of. They're going to want more authenticity. They're going to want people that are comfortable in their own skin. And I don't think you can underestimate. I know from my own experience as a trial lawyer and as a business person, and now as a kind of an entrepreneurial mentor, that my greatest gift is just they see I'm comfortable in my skin, and
Right.
they trust you, and
I
and I yeah
Yeah. I'm always very surprised too how quickly that comes across to people.
yeah
Like again, when I'm doing social media posts or something, I'm being a little bit more deliberate with my wording or how I'm communicating. But sometimes it's just like meeting a parent at the playground and we just start talking and like 20 minutes in the conversation, they're like, I'm going to switch my whole family to your dental practice because you're just so passionate and just such a, and I'm like, how did that even come across? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm very unaware of how
uh,
things come across, but it's really cool that I don't know. In this whole process of starting my practice, it's just been really cool to me to see how quickly people can pick up on my genuineness, I guess, and my passion. And it's just something, again, even when I'm very not deliberately trying to communicate that, it's amazing how strongly that comes through and how
boom,
quickly.
boom. I mean, that's that's what we call a ding ding ding. You're not trying to be something, you just are. You're,
Yeah.
and there's something too that I realize in my own experience as I become ever more comfortable in my own skin, is that you don't have to be you can still screw up. It's
Yes.
you're free to the perfectionism when you can just be yourself. And you sometimes it may be something that I did that was untoward, or not as competent as I wanted to be, and it's okay, because I know I'm comfortable enough that the first time I screw up doesn't mean that I'm a phony and I'm an imposter and this whole thing's going to come crumbling down.
Right. I think that's especially hard to communicate to my employees. I find that sometimes very challenging. Patients, I feel like they're able to see that pretty well and clearly. And when they aren't, again, that's not the kind of patient I really want in my practice that is expecting something that's unrealistic. But with employees, that can be tricky because sometimes they just get tired or burnt out or they have something going on in their personal life. And then if I do something that's not perfect, they're very quick to freak out over it. And I have to very deliberately, again, kind of remind them of the person I am and the situation they're in and all this stuff
Well,
and navigate that a little differently. I care a little bit more if they were to leave than a patient.
but there's something again here, and we'll wrap this up because you and I could talk forever, and I'm lucky to have you in my life where in other ways we can. That 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 who you are, is that right? Because I would say who we are. I want to make sure I got the tense right. Yeah, who you are is threatening to people. They, in a way, when you see someone this comfortable and this successful who doesn't really care, a lot of times people want to see you fail because you're a threat to their own insecurities. And I think this is just part of comes with that as well. You can often be a target for other people's insecurities and sense of failure. And
Yeah.
and again, it's another thing of just being comfortable enough to know that. And I still try to meet those people with as much love as I can. And one last point I want to make too with you too, because is that what I noticed, because we were working together during the pandemic, uh, you and my former partner, and what we were both so amazed at, you had banked so much goodwill with your patients and with your staff that people were just willing to, you had that to draw upon when other people didn't. And
Yeah.
so they had a very thin cushion in terms of when their patients got pissed or when their employees said this isn't fair. And people were willing to give you the benefit of the doubt because you had such a bank of goodwill. And I think that's another reason where when you have missteps or things don't go perfectly or personality clashes, that you've got that bank to draw upon when you're always filling it up, which you always are.
I think that's a really good point too, because my story is very not typical of dentists, and most of the dentists in my community had to like people go permanently, or they had to drop 1 day a week, which meant all their employees were making way less money. They were telling people to get off the clock and, yeah, randomly to work less, which is stressful. A lot of my colleagues had their whole teams leave or just quit because they just couldn't, they didn't feel safe at work because they weren't implementing things to make them feel safe or communicating with them at all. I actually gave some N95s to some assistants I knew in the community here in Chapel Hill because their bosses wouldn't get them for them
Well,
and wanted them to work. Um, so, and like again, patients leaving because they said there's no communication and they didn't feel safe. Um, si- Even though people initially came back to dental appointments for the most part, the very first few months of opening, a lot of dentists struggled in October, November because it was 6 months after the people had just gotten their, or like the 6 months after the March, April period where they were closed. So all the people that would be due for their 6 month cleanings in October had didn't have cleaning appointments in October, so their whole schedule was open,
mhm.
and they were wondering how they were going to make payroll. Yeah, so in my community, everyone's been really, really stressed, and
Yeah.
so my story and my experience is completely different from them. Um, but yeah, had to, and financial planning was important with that. But yeah, definitely goodwill, and I've just continued to do what I've always done with patients, and they've had a lot of confidence in me and how I've approached things. Related to is just I posted about getting the vaccine while pregnant, and I was amazed how many personal messages I got that said, if you're comfortable with this vaccine, then I'm going to get it.
That's so beautiful because
You
then
know?
you
Yeah.
become a model for things you don't even know you were modeling just by being yourself.
Right. And that's, again, I didn't really expect that big of a response. I think it's good just to show people that you're comfortable. But I thought it would be a lot more subconscious or quiet than that, than actually getting that many messages from people. And people had asked me questions about it that say, look, I'm pregnant too. How did you make the decision? I don't really understand how this works. The vaccine works. Can you explain it to me? Like, it's just great to be that resource for people in the community that they feel comfortable that they can reach out to me. And yeah.
And I want to add one more piece here as we close, and that is that in terms of like the future of hard powered entrepreneurship, you are one hell of a businesswoman too. I mean, it isn't just that you're a nice person and so you let your niceness go out. I mean, we talk about ruthlessly, shamelessly idealistic and ruthlessly accountable, and you've got both pieces.
Well,
Um,
thank you.
no, it is. You're just such a pleasure to work with. And so, if people are in the area here, or local in the Triangle area, Chapel Hill, your practice is talk about your practice where they can get a hold of you. And
Yeah.
if they use this special code that you saw Shana on the Hard Power Adventure podcast, we'll get you in there before July. That's an
Yeah.
mandate. I can't promise that. I just like to say.
Well, no, we're in the Chapel Hill North Shopping Center. We're right off of I-40, exit 266, but immediately off the exit. So we do have patients that come in from Raleigh area or towards Greensboro too, because it's right off the highway. You can schedule completely online 24/7 on our website. It's holmanfamilydentalcare.com, and it's Holman Family Dental Care on Facebook and Instagram. But definitely follow us, even if it's just to learn a little about social media marketing, um, and see kind of what we're about. You'll learn a lot just from following us on social media.
And I would say as well, we will shortly be launching her program. I like to say our program, but her program for dentists on how to basically create Holman type practices. So if you know of anyone, if you are a practitioner, a dentist in that field, or if you know, if you say, hey, I want my dentist to be more like Shana, um, You can also reach out to Shana through the website, and we're not sure, we'll be launching that fairly soon. So I would invite you to, if you know people in that world as well, this is a great gift, and her authenticity and her wisdom is contagious, and I want to spread it through the dental world as fast and as far as we can.